Today I will talk about the challenges that structure may have, and tomorrow I'll show you also how to step by step from system to go to structures, step by step. So I'm sorry if sometimes the things that I'm saying, they are, they seems like, too boring maybe for you, or too independent, you don't need them. Trust me, you don't need them for now maybe, but as soon your church will grow up to 100 people, you will need them. Or church, or ministry, or business, you will need them for sure. Without these things, you cannot do. Once, let me start with a story. Once, I remember I've been an administrator of the church, and we implemented, have you heard about ISO system? You know ISO? ISO, you know what is that, yeah? International Standardization System. So, and according to that system, according to, like office work, actually there are requirements, how much time you have, how you should answer, how should you reply phone calls, how much time you have to reply phone calls if it was missed, etc., etc. So we implement that system, and the delegation from Netherlands, they came with the pastor, main pastors, he was their apostle. They came, and they came to the church office, and they've seen a paper, and they asked me, "What paper is that?" I said, "Oh, that's the blank for the phone calls." They said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Every phone call that we get, if it was missed, whether it's to senior pastor or to security guy, doesn't matter. All of them, they're registering. We make copy of that call. We pass the copy of this paper to the person who missed the call, and the office manager is taking control. He's controlling. So each phone call should be answered within 24 hours. So and the system of this call ends up only when the person gives a report, brings a report with this paper." At that time, there was no so many computers. There, we had only Microsoft Outlook. So, but it didn't work well. So now, of course, you can do it electronically. So we did with the papers. So the person should bring the paper and give a report that the phone call was answered. Here's the result. And then he puts both of these papers together and he puts them in archive. So anytime person calls, for example, one year later, and he said, "Oh, I called 1 year ago on December 25th, and the call was not returned." So the secretary or the office manager goes to archive and he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, probably you missed the information, but here's the information. And on the back of that paper, there is the information that, that was answered to that person." He said, "Probably maybe you forgot about it, but here's the information. If you did not get information, I'm really sorry, but here's the answer." So when they seen it, they said, "Wow. And listen, they asked me a question. How much time did you pray and fast so Lord gave you such an idea?" I said, "I never pray and fast. I just read it in the newspaper. In the magazine." The reason why I share this with you, because listen, there are lots of things that are written about structures. Go and read. Make research. Start to read about structure, how to form the structure, how to build the structure. Yesterday, I don't know if that brother is here, the chairman of political party. Oh, yes, I see you, yeah. You asked a very good question. Once again, I'm not trying to confront you. I'm just trying to show you very simple answer. Very simple answer. Listen, the political party that has a structure will always win. It always wins. We have one farmer, parliamentarian in my church I have. And he said, "I'm going to win in next elections, next 4 years." He said, "I'm going to win. I said, "How can you be sure about that?" I know, but I was curious, how the way he thinks. And he explained to me. He said very, very simple. He showed me the structure. Let me show you the structure. He said, "My district, the district, in the capital," he said, "my district is about 500,000 people, 500,000. He said, that's my district." He said, "What I need, he has about 32 small districts like that. You understand, yeah? So he said, my goal is, I don't know. He said, I have influence over a couple of those. What does it mean, influence? He said, each of these districts, each of them, has about like 50, let's say 20,000. He said, out of these 20,000, I need to have 2,500 to win. 2,500 to win. And he said, I already have, in 3 or 4, I said, I have that influence. How? In one of them, he has influence over the schools, in the school departments. That's structure. The other one, he has the influence, in this over the senior people. They have lots of needs. So he said, I have. Now he said, I need to run to start, run. I need to find representatives who will build the influence in those districts. He said, if out of these 32, he said, if I win in 20, if I know that I have influence in 20, I have no problems. And then he said, but that will help me to become the deputy or representative of the city. But he said that's just a first step, because if I'm going to do 32, then I become automatically. If out of these 32, half of them they become on the city level, he said I automatically become on the national level. He knows the structure. So what is he doing? Do you think he's just going, or he's making TV or radio programs? He says, I don't care about TV or radio. If there is a chance, I go there. But he doesn't care about that. He said, I care about numbers, and what to do. He has the structure. And listen, nobody is going to, he said, nobody, for example, in Ukrainian politics, no one is going to the upper level if they don't win, if they did not win on the lower level. And they build the structure. So they need to, first you need to win on that level, then next level, and structure. So when they go there, when they get there on the highest level, people, they may say about them whatever they want. They may say, oh, he's stupid, what is he saying? Look the way he talks. Listen, the person is stupid. He doesn't know how to talk, but he's there. The fact that the fact that political party, they have the structure, you may like them or may you dislike them, whatever, they will be there. Whether you're right or you're wrong, they'll be there because they have structure. So if you are able to build structures, once again, you are winner. So once again, system is the understanding how to get there. Sequence, step-by-step sequence. Structure, it's an ability to mobilize and to organize people, resources, processes. That's an ability, understanding how to organize. Also, and for the structure, for those resources, people to sustain, to support the system. But when you will face with these, you will face with certain challenges. And those challenges, you need to work on yourself, or you need to understand, you need to know them in order to overcome them anytime you face with them. For example, one simple thing about understanding. Whom of you ever started, maybe project or something, business? Do you know that there are challenges any business have? If to draw the timeline of success, then any business, it could be drawn like this. So first it goes quick start, then it goes come down, then it goes very, 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 up, raising up. You're very, very slow. You don't raise like these. And people who do not understand this principle on this level especially, or on this level, they're giving up. Because they're saying nothing is working. Listen, that's a normal process of any business. It should be like that. That's normal process for the church. That's a normal process. You always have a quick start, and then it's like, it's going. Pastor David, let me ask you a question. When you start the church, before you implement G12, did you stuck a little bit in numbers, growing numbers, before G12?
Yes, we struggled. But we had another type of structure we were using.
Yes, I know, but you stuck with that structure.
Yes.
So that's why he had to restructure in order to go forth. Are you with me? So this structure, and that's one of the challenges, because sometimes you have an idea, you did something, you succeed, and then it stops. It doesn't grow. And you start to be people who do not understand these challenges, they're getting disappointed. They're saying nothing is working. Or they go to God, they're saying, Lord, help me. In God's Embassy Church, already 5 or 6 times, 6 times already, we restructured the church. For 20 years. In 20 years, 6 times we restructured the church. Totally. We also had the G12. The difference with the G12 in Ukraine, the challenge that we have. We've been about 8,000 people. When we did G12, we grew up 15,000. And then after that, we also stuck. Why? Because the mentality of Ukrainians is a little bit different from yours. For example, after salvation, can you be taken somewhere to the camp for 3 days? Like retreat?
Yes, we do.
You do it. In Ukraine, it's not possible. People, they're getting scared, like 3 days? Where? Wow, where do you take me? So we did not succeed. So we had to think. We took something, it worked, but it didn't work the way it should be. So we restructured that. And then we restructured again. And then we restructured the church again. So that's, you need to understand. So that's why, let me talk briefly about the challenges. So challenge number 1 that you may have, building the structure or doing the structure. The structure has to be corresponded, or it has to correspond the system. Once again, the structure has to correspond the system. If that's your system, sequence, then the structure should correspond the system and its goals. So the structure should be the same. It should correspond. For example, let's say here's the store that sells ties, men's ties we sell. Who do we need in the store when customer is coming? Who do we need? Seller, yes? Do we need a seller? Can you imagine if you build a store, you put ties, and you just put the cashier and no seller? And people, they need to have advices. And cashier is saying, I cannot come to you, sorry. So what's the purpose of the system? To sell ties. What's the structure? What's the purpose of the structure? To get money. The cashier only. It's just to count the money, to register the money. So something is missed. Are you with me? Something is missing. We're missing, the part of the structure which is seller. We need seller. We need someone who's saying, hello, how are you doing today? How can I help you? We miss that person. If you miss the person, then the system is good, but the structure is bad. So you have to understand, one of the challenges, you have to be so wise. You have to really understand that your structure corresponds to the goals of the system. For example, about political campaign. Do you need to have influence in the primary schools? Because they don't vote. I mean, you need, of course, for teachers, yes. But for students, they don't vote. That's not your, focus group. But, some people, they're saying, let's say you are trying to be elected, and somebody's saying, you can go to that primary school, and I'll gather, first 5 grades, and you'll have speech. And you say, I can make myself busy, so I'll go to that school. I'll have the speech. I'll explain them how to build the future of Nigeria. They don't understand you. And you don't need them. So the goal, once again, the goal of the system is one, but the structure you're trying to do, the way you're trying to do is different. So they had to correspond. Are you with me? So it has to be in your head. In your head you have to, that's the system. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's the structure. 1, 2, 3. Yesterday we talked, after that, we have that, dinner. We talked with Brother Randy. We talked and he showed me the system they do. It's also 3-step system they do with these, international missions, something. And he said, I need to understand that's the structure we're trying to do. And when he showed the structure, I said, yes, that's correct. Because the structure was corresponding totally to the goal of his system. Sometimes we do wrong things. For example, you want to start churches in Muslim countries, yes? Do you need your people to get ready for that? To be prepared for that? Let's say, Brother Randy is coming and saying, Pastor David, I'm ready to prepare your people. So send those people to United States of America for 3 months, so they will study, we'll send them back. Send those 5,000 people. Will it work?
With a lot of problems.
It will not work. Why? Because the goal of the system is to send missionaries, and if you want to send missionaries, you have to understand that these are people from the country that cannot pay. They cannot pay for the tickets. They cannot pay for, housing. So you have to understand it's better to come here. You see? So you can have a right goal. You can have a right system. I need to educate them. But the structure, when it is wrong, it will not work. Are you getting me? So you have to understand. That's challenge number 1. Challenge number 2 that you may face building the system. Structure, sorry. Number 2. The structure itself should not become the goal of the structure. Once again, I'll explain. The structure itself should not be the goal of the structure, of existence of that structure. The structure itself. We see the mistake of it, we see with the government. For example, let me ask you, the government, is it a system or it's a structure? The government, the cabinet of minister, president, high court, etc. Is it the system or the structure? It's the structure. But you know where the problem is? When the structure works for itself. They have to work for the system. So if the president, or let's say if the court, or the military, they should not protect military. What they are for? Therefore, they have certain purposes. But they are not just to sustain themselves. You had that problem. You remember when you had these, revolutions for independence, when they were waiting. The militaries, they, instead of protecting, they became those, who took the power, actually. So they're wrong. So the existence of structure should not be the goal of the structure. But the structure is just, structure exists to sustain, to support the process, For example, can you imagine the ushers on the doors? Are they a system or the structure? The structure. Can you imagine when the usher is standing like that, is saying, I am not going to allow you to enter. And he's big. And there are 5 of them. And they say, no, I'm not going to allow you to enter. Why? Because you didn't pay the fee. So what's the goal? The goal is to pay the fee, or the goal is what is happening inside? The goal is what is happening inside. So ushers, it's just a part of the structure. But it's not the goal of the structure. Are you with me? So once again, the structure that you build, it has to, it's not the goal. It's not the goal. So what you do, it's not the goal. But everything that you do should redirect you to the goal. It has to. So that's why, should be the structure flexible thing? Oh yeah. It should be very flexible, very flexible. It should be flexible like, like rubber, yeah. Like, rubber band. It should be flexible. Most of the time, we don't like that. We don't like to, we don't like to change. We're not ready for changes. Actually, we even call these, changes, we call transformation, revolution. We have to be ready for changes. Sometimes for even radical changes, we have to be ready. Why? Because the goal of the structure is not structure itself, but the goal of the structure to sustain and to support the, promote the step-by-step going or processing to the goal of the system. Okay, challenge number 3. Challenge number 3. The truth about the structure, from time to time you have to restructure the structure. That's the truth. That's what someone asked me about yesterday. The lady was sitting here. Do you remember? She said, how often you should restructure the structure? Sometimes you could do it, maybe, I told you, I gave you an example already. You have to restructure it, as many times as possible. For example, let me give you an example. Today, while I was sitting, while Brother Randy was explaining about Islam, I was listening to him, and at the same time, I'm always thinking, okay, what should I do? How should I implement that? And you know what? Normally, how do you start services in the church, in the churches here? How do you start church service? How do you start? Praise, then worship, then announcements, then etc. Testimonies. That's the structure. Yes? While I was listening to him, I thought, okay, many Christians in Ukraine, they're Orthodox. It's like Muslims, but they're Orthodox. I mean, they're Christian, they call themselves Christian, but they are, I would say they're even less Christian than some Muslims. Orthodox. So I thought, okay, we start church like that. Okay, we need to restructure. I already wrote the restructured service, so we will start, we break the old structure. We break things that, that I wrote, I'm scared to say to my wife and to, to the council, because I'm not sure if they'll really understand what they might think like, pastor is getting crazy. Because we want to start with the things that normally church do not start. But I understand, what's the goal? The goal is to do the church service, or the goal is to lead people to Christ. So if we need to lead people to Christ, then I need to restructure it, that's all. I got it from, Brother Randy, I got the understanding, okay, I need to restructure it. So how many times can you restructure? As many times as possible. until it starts to it corresponds to the goal of the system the perfect way, the most excellent way. That's what should be done. Some people, some political parties, you know why they fail? They fail because they were not ready for changes. They fail simply because they do everything the way they did before. Okay? Let's go further. Next thing. Oh, okay, I forgot. Let me give you an example of this, how to restructure. For example, budgeting money. Whom of you budget, you have your family budget. Do you have your family budget? So the family budget is a system. It's a system. It means what does it mean, family budget? Before I spend my money, I have to put them on different, sides, on different parts, okay? But what is the structure? The structure is that this year, for example, I restructure the percentage, division. I do, okay, before I had 10%, now I put 8%, and I add 2% to another part of my budget. So how often can you change it? As often as possible. But what remains unchanged? Before I spend the money, I have to budget them. You getting? So you can restructure. It has to be flexible. It has to be flexible. Next thing, next challenge. There are no more or less important parts or parts of your structure. There are no less or more important. You cannot say that, okay, that's not an important thing. That's not an important thing. Trust me, some unimportant thing, non-important thing of your structure can spoil the whole idea. You want me to show you the example? You experienced that example. Pastor David, do you remember on the first day, I'm sorry, I know you're writing, but I know it's good to use your example because they understand you better and they understand the example. Do you remember what on the first day, during the session, in the beginning, what did you say about this place? You said, probably you will be changed because of what?
It was too much. That is the...
No, you said air conditioning.
Yes, the air conditioning system.
Air condition. Whom of you thought about air condition as you entered the hall? How many times did you think about air conditioning today? But trust me, if the air condition would not work properly, it will spoil the whole process. You will sleep. You will sweat. You will sleep. And the whole process. So is the air conditioning, is it an important part? No, that's not an important part. But without that non-important part, the whole structure is spoiling. So that is why there are no more or less important parts in structuring. So you cannot say that, okay, that's not important. Listen, forget about these words. Whom of you ever said, oh, that's not important? Non-important things, trust me, non-important things, they are most important things. So that is why there are no few or less, more important things. In structuring, everything is important. You have to do everything. And you should not stop until you've done the last thing. Only when you do the smaller thing, that's when your structure is done. Remember, the tension or the power of the chain is determined by the power of the weakest link, of its weakest link. So if your whole structure is good, but the small thing you didn't pay enough time to it. So the whole structure, the power of your structure is dependent or is determined by the power of that weakest link. All right? So there are no, small things. For example, yesterday, Pastor David, when we had that dinner, after the dinner, what did you do when we finished the dinner? What did you do?
I ordered for the place to be cleaned up and then for the other ones to finish the food.
So who was the last of the speakers who came out of that room?
Out of the dinner room?
Yes.
I think it's Pastor Ima, I guess.
Yeah, but that was actually you. Because you remember when we finished, Pastor David stood here and he said good night to everyone who was coming out. Do you think it's an important thing? Or is it more important than dinner itself? But without that thing, the picture would not be complete. Are you getting that? So pay attention to small details. Pay attention when you do the structure. Also, I'm trying at the same time to show you how, things that you do not notice because you live with your pastor. You do not notice those things. I notice them. So you start also think like that. Next challenge of the structure. I will finish in 5 minutes. If you want to create structures, if you want to learn, if you want to train yourself to build the structures, you have to always create system from very small thing. You have to create systems, and out of the system you have to create structures. Even with the smallest things, you have to practice every single time you have to practice. For example, while I was sitting here yesterday, the idea came into my mind. The idea is next. I thought, how to improve outreach system in the church? How to improve? And the idea came into my mind. I said, sometimes when we come to people, street evangelists, when we come to people and we're saying, let me pray with you, some of them they deny. I don't know in Nigeria, but in Ukraine, some of them they deny proposal. And I started to think, how can I hook them? How can I hook? And bright idea came into my mind. I got it. So what's the idea? The idea is, I come to the person, not ask the person to pray. I come in and say, you know what? May I have 2 minutes of your time? You know what? I am praying every single night, every single day, and every Friday night, I'm a Christian, and I pray for our city, for citizens of our city, which is you also. But I made a decision. Instead of praying for the whole city, I changed my mind, and I want to come to people and ask for specific needs. So anyway, I pray. So I would pray not just for the whole city, but for the specific need of specific person. So if you're not mind, may I have your need, your name and your need, and I will pray for you whole next week. And Friday night, I will pray for you specifically. So what do you think? In this case, will person reject the idea? Attention were given, kindness, etc. was shown. Okay, but that's just idea. Now I have to create the system. But then I have to create this structure. So what system did I create? Okay, I need to do it on Saturdays. Why? Because Saturday, if I'll do it on Saturday, then I can pray. Then, Friday night I can pray. Then Sunday I can invite that person. All right, so the system is, that was the system, the idea. Okay? Now the structure. The structure is, number one, what I need to have. I need to have the team of 10 people. Why? Because I need to train them. Otherwise, I will do it my whole life, I'll do it by myself only. So I need to find 10 people. Okay, I'm finding 10 people. Out of my church, I determined 7 people. Then I wrote to Skype. All right, guys, who wants to join the idea? Some people, they started to respond. Okay, I made the list of those people. Okay, then I got, I need to train them first. Okay, here I'll train them. This date. That's the processes. Then I need to develop the design. Okay, I sent to our designer. Designer, you need to develop design, please. And designer already sent me. While I'm here, it's working, structure. So there is a designer who designed. Then I said, okay, here's the prayer. I wrote the prayer. Okay, then what I need to do? Then I need to create, if I take the contact of the person, I need to find 10, I need to do it with 10 people. Then on Tuesday, I need to send them text message that, that informs them, hey, my name is Andrew, remember me, I'm praying for you this week. So if you have any changes or any other needs, let me know. So I'm making contact. Then on Friday, on Saturday after the Friday night, I should make the call to those 10 people to let them know, hey, it's a week how I'm praying, the week went, I was praying for you yesterday night, whole night today, I was praying for you. So is there any changes? Or maybe you need me to continue to pray for you. And then at the end of the call I said, if you want not me only, but the whole church to pray for you, tomorrow there will be a gathering of the church. Can you come? So are you getting? So the idea is good, but the idea has to be supported with the structure, systemized, and then the structured. Small idea, but you have to turn it into system and structure. System and structure. System and structure. If you don't think like that, then when the good opportunity will come, you will not deal with that. For example, what if tomorrow PDP will call you and say, hey, we want to become your vice chairman? What are you going to do? Will you agree? It's an opportunity. But you know what? If you don't know how to build the structures, they can invite you, but 2 months later, they'll fire you. Listen, Bible is saying, prepare your horse for the battle. You have to prepare the horse for the battle. So you need to develop these kind of thinking. Remember Pastor Sunday said, the culture of system thinking, structure building. You remember that? You have to prepare. You have to prepare. It's not happening one day. It takes about sometimes years for you, but you need to develop that. Some people, for example, in the United States, they've been more lucky because they've been raised and systems surround them everywhere, structure, system. So they're sufficient, they're sufficient in those areas. In my country, we didn't have things like that. I've heard about the system. First time I've heard the word system, I think I was about 32. Or maybe 31. So you have to work on that. Okay, next challenge. Next challenge you may have building the structure. You always need to develop within you the skills to manage people, manage resources, manage your time, and manage the processes. You need to develop, even today, you have to start actually yesterday. You had to start yesterday. You need to learn or to develop skills, how to develop, or how to manage people, resources, time, and processes. People, resources, time, and processes. Why is it so important? Because the structure, it's the ability to manage. Listen, and if you are not skilled enough to do that, if you are not skilled enough, then you will not work. For example, whom of you ever heard about such thing? Emotional intellect, EI. EI, have you heard about it? You know what is that? Emotional intellect, that's an ability to recognize and understand your own emotions. That's an ability to manage your emotions so to release it or to show it appropriate way. That's an ability to understand the emotions of other people. And that's an ability to build relationship between your emotions and emotions of other person. What do you think? Is it important in the, when we talk about managing people? You know what? I was shocked because I'm a military. I never cried. Once I've seen Pastor Sunday, he was listening. I was sitting, when he had this counseling, one-on-one counseling. I was sitting, most of the time I was sitting at his, cabinet, or at his office, and he was talking to a lady, and the lady was talking. He asked her if she can, tell in the front of me. She said, okay, no problem. And she was telling the story. How was she a prostitute? How she was a prostitute before she came to Christ. And she was crying. And you know what? I was shocked. Pastor Sunday was sitting and crying with her. There were tears on his, on his cheeks. I didn't understand that thing. I thought like, what's the point? You're a man. Listen, but that's a part of people management. You know that if you're not able to have a compassion and to show enough compassion, the person, listen, we can confess, according to 1 John 1:9, it says that confess your sins to be forgiven, yes? But confess, that's one thing. But then it says, confess your sins before each other to be healed. So if you confess your sin before God, sometimes it's good. But sometimes you don't feel forgiven. Whom of you ever felt like that? You confess your sin, but you did not feel inside something is. So then you go to someone and you speak out the thing you confess, the thing, and you feel, oh, much better. So, but how to make that process, that thing more effective is when the person that hears you shows the compassion. Is that so? So, now, I was a military. I was taught to do not cry, to do not show my emotions. Now tell me, am I a good pastor? Can I be a good pastor? If I do not develop that skill, and I started to develop the skill, I didn't like to hug people. I had to develop the skill. You wouldn't believe. It's, if you really want to be if you really want to launch the transformation, there are so many things needs to be done. But the good thing is, you have a good pastor, you have a good example. Just take an example. For example, I learned from him. Because I know that's my focus. Did you hear the way he listens to you? Do you know? Let me show you how he listens to you. I noticed that and I started to copy it. And you know what? Sometimes I don't listen to what people tell me. Sometimes. I'm not saying all the time. Sometimes, but I do like this. And they say, thank you, Pastor, for listening to me. I copied that. You need to develop their skills. I'm not saying that Pastor David is not listening. He is listening to you. He is very, but I didn't understand that. I didn't know that it could be so important. But then I realized, oh, it's important. Okay, I need to add that. I need to develop the skill. It took for me about a couple weeks after last year I came for the first time. It took for me a couple weeks, but I developed that skill. So now, who talked to me? Did you not? If you notice now, I listen to you like that. Because I know it's good. For example, you want to be a politician, you know you need that skill. Because people who will come to you, look the way, the governors, they talk. I watched this on TV, the way they talk. And people are telling, sorry, am I making correct? If I'm saying things, because I don't want, listen, I want you to understand, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm not negative, I'm just looking for this thing. I'm trying to observe them because I want to correct myself. I watched that Quara State, they had this governmental program. And I don't remember who was with me. I don't remember. I said to someone, look, the problem, I don't know whether it was Pastor, no, that was not Pastor John. What was that? Okay, whatever. Someone was speaking. Someone had a speech on the stage. And the presidents, all the cabinet, they were sitting. And they did not even care. They just talked to each other. They didn't pay attention to the person on that, with that microphone. I started to think, what if I would be the president? How would I listen to that person? I would listen like this. What would that person, and I will look in the eyes of that person, what would get, that person would be encouraged that, listen, the president himself, his excellency, is listening, and he listens what I'm saying. Oh, wow. Sometimes it will motivate that person without even words. So do you need to develop your skills? Develop your skills. Develop. So these are challenges that you may have when you build the structure. Tomorrow, I'll give you a step-by-step process how you can build the structure. After the system, structure, etc., etc., etc. So we'll talk. I'm just trying to be sequential. Once again, I know it could be boring to you, but listen, these are things, the most boring things in the ministry. They are most effective things, trust me. Preaching boldly and passionately, I wouldn't say that's the biggest thing. I would not say. If you've ever heard T.L. Osborne, sometimes he was bold, but sometimes the way he was preaching, he was in Ukraine, honestly. Once I fell into sleep while he was preaching. Not because I was tired and it was so just, on the same level, so I fall into sleep. But did it make him, did the fact that I fall into sleep, did it make him less successful? So because he knew how to do those things. And when you talk to him, if you talk to him one-on-one, when he talks about Christ, you start to cry. When he talks about Christ. Why? Because he understands, he managed that thing, So that's why I think that's all for now. So tomorrow we'll continue. Thank you.